welcome back to Success Today. I'm your host, Bob Guiney. Joining me today is David Auer. Now, David, you have over 30 years, close to 30 years, I should say, experience as a tax attorney, a CPA. I mean, there's a lot going on out there. The tax laws are crazy, so I can imagine it's got to be difficult to keep them all straight. But tell me a little bit about yourself and about your company.
Well, I started out my career as a CPA and then realized very quickly that I needed to have that law degree and tax law degree to really be effective in advising clients, especially those who have a significant amount of income and income tax every year.
Sure.
So my firm, it's a consulting firm that helps clients really in three main ways. One is we provide proactive tax planning and strategic planning for business owners, entrepreneurs, professionals, and investors. We also provide estate planning and asset protection planning because we want to try to protect what they've worked so hard to create and earn.
Yeah.
And then the third is we act as a coach and a support system for other CPAs, financial advisors, and attorneys to help them be more proactive in providing tax planning for their clients.
So essentially spreading the knowledge a little bit for
Exactly,
them.
yes.
Now, I know you said you started off as a CPA, but how did you get involved in this industry in the first place?
Well, after several years of being a CPA, and when I was working in an international accounting firm in Dallas in their tax department, I realized that most of the clients that I was working with needed to have somebody that was more proactive for them, because most accountants are really dealing with working on things that happened in the past,
right?
Rather
Last
than,
year, sure.
Yeah, in the current year or in the future. So what I realized is I really need to continue on with that education, and becoming a tax attorney allowed me to have the ability to now help clients go from looking in the rearview mirror of their life to now looking more through the windshield of where they wanted to go, and then being very intentional about educating them on what all the options were, just so that they could make sure they weren't leaving any money on the table.
I imagine that's a pretty unique approach to the business, right?
It is. It's unusual just because the accounting profession is so busy just trying to keep everybody caught up. Mm-hmm. Over the last 100 years, the Internal Revenue Code has gone from 400 pages to over 70,000. You can't even get it in print anymore. It's so voluminous. And that's not even including regulations and the case law and everything else.
Right.
Albert Einstein once said that the most difficult thing in the world to understand is the U.S. tax law. And I think he had a point. I was looking at the instructions for the Form 1040, and at the beginning, they did a good job of making sure it was the very last thing in the instructions, but they said that on average, the average person spends 13 hours a year preparing their tax return. And if you own a business, it's an additional 24 hours every year that it just takes to prepare your own return. Sure. So that's almost a full work week when you add those two together, if you happen to be a business owner.
Yeah.
It's over 60% of every tax return prepared in America is now prepared by somebody that's a paid professional.
Yeah.
Which should tell you that Congress maybe ought to start looking at ways to simplify it, because it really has become a burden.
Right. Well, yeah, and everyone's so afraid of making a mistake for fear that it's going to ruin the rest of their lives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and accountants and tax preparers are just trying to do the best they can to keep their head above water. Matter of fact, I have one of my favorite questions when I ask somebody is, so Bob, when was the last time that your tax advisor came to you and said, "I've got an idea to save you money"? Do you want to hear about it?
Yeah, never, I think it was.
I think the answer is usually never, or maybe not yet.
Yeah.
So I think there's a hope, and usually there's an expectation that somebody who's preparing your tax return is really going to be able to be proactive, but it just doesn't happen that way.
Now, I can imagine with you have helped so many people, I'm sure, over the close to 30 years you've been in this business. Any particular success stories that you can pick out for me that are just night and day differences from where they started and where they ended up?
They range all across the board, but there's really kind of two examples that I just now have helped recently that are fresh on my mind. One is a medical professional in California that owns her own medical practice, doing very well. And when I looked at her past year's tax returns, which she had changed accountants, but I came back with showing her that she had overpaid her taxes by $150,000.
Oh my goodness!
So the new
it's
CPA,
a little bit of an error there.
Yeah, it very much is.
Yeah.
And then when I looked at where she was this year, and then where she was planning to take her practice in the next several years, we were able to help her save another $940,000 in income tax this year. and almost $4 million over just the next 5 years if she put some things in place. And it was going to increase her net worth if she followed those strategies by over $10 million.
Oh, sure.
I have another example that I'm working with. I've had, he's a business owner doing very well, about $2 million a year in profits, has been paying about $900,000 of income tax every year. And so we put a proactive estate tax and business plan in place, and he's saving now over $750,000 a year, which will add up to several million dollars over the next several years. And we put in place a succession plan so that he can, when he's ready to sell his business, he's going to be able to sell his business to his key employees and be able to enjoy what he's built to that point.
Two things I'm taking away from our conversation. One, I need to call you, and two, I need a different job.
Exactly.
I need to be in one of those industries.
Well, I'd love to talk to you. So,
yeah, definitely. Well, I think the big thing, too, is important for our viewers to know. You work with people across the country. You have people in every different state, and it's not just, even though I know you're based in the heartland, but you've got people everywhere that you work with.
We do, and we prepare tax returns in over 40 states and give tax advice in those states. Obviously, California, New York are one of the highest income tax states. So the medical professional I was telling you about, she's in over a 55% marginal income tax bracket.
Wow.
And so, 55 cents on every dollar that we can help her save in taxes is going back into her pocket.
That's fantastic. Well, you know what? From your lips to everybody else's, hopefully, paychecks and bank books on that one. Now, real quick, can you let our viewers know how they can find you if they want your services?
Yes, our website is auertaxgroup.com.
And that's AUER.
That's right, taxgroup.com. And then our toll-free number is 1-85-LOWER-TAX.
Nice, I like
So
it.
you can-
So 1-85-LOWER-TAX.
That's correct. And then we will set up an initial consultation just to see how much we might be able to help you.
Excellent. Well, David, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining us on Success Today, and continued success to you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir.